everybody. Welcome back to the Two Peas in a Podcast with your glamorous, gorgeous host as ever. Thank you for being here. We hope that you're good, that you've had a good couple of weeks, that life has been treating you kindly. For those that don't know us, my name is Katie. I am based here in the UK, and my very glamorous, gorgeous bestie co-host is...
Hi guys, my name is Jessica. I'm over here in America. I hope everybody is doing well, and I am ready for today's discussion. I'm fired up.
She is so ready. We just spent 10 minutes talking about how ready she is, girl. She's born ready, right? She is like chomping at the bit. But we need to explain what this podcast is. So essentially, we are looking at current events, world events. Well, I say world to a point. It's mostly focusing on the UK and the US because that's our experiences. That's what we're going through right now. And we need to disclaimer. We're going to try to stick to the facts as much as we can, but we are going to give our opinions. So we're very mindful of our opinions and very mindful of different people that are watching. But I said, so the reason this kind of sprang up, well, in part, was that I saw an Australian comedian a few years ago called Adam Hills. I love him. If you haven't seen him, check him out. It's really funny. And he met the Dalai Lama. And the Dalai Lama said, if you have a microphone, use it to say something, right? And I'm not saying that the podcasts that we've done before now have been like we haven't said anything, because obviously Jess and I talk about a lot of different topics and we've made a lot of good points, and I know that. I just feel like with everything that's going on, I feel like it's almost a responsibility on this platform to say something. So that's kind of where it was born from.
Yeah, and I mean, I feel like also even though we do find ourselves to be very spiritual, we're also human beings on this planet, and we are very much affected by politics, the economy, terrible things that happen, natural disasters. I mean, we're not separate from this. And this last week in specific has been really, really hard, especially for me over here in America with everything that's been going on, which we'll get into. It's just been really, really tough on me, which Katie has seen. We actually didn't do last week's podcast because I just was not in a great space. I'm an empath, for those that don't know. And so an empath is somebody who is able to feel somebody else's emotions and even pick up physical elements and like energies in rooms and stuff. And when things like what happened last week with Charlie Kirk, I was feeling everybody's anger, everybody's sadness. I was feeling my own anger, my own sadness over everything that's happened. It just was not a good week. And so I feel like, and I brought this up to Katie, that I think we're going to have to address the elephant in the room, and we are going to have to talk about what's going on in the world. Not only what's going on over here in America, but there's also a lot of stuff going on where you're at.
Yeah, absolutely. So, take this as you want to take it. But always bear in mind that we are people, we are human beings, and we are entitled to our opinion, whether you agree with it or not. So
yeah, I want to interject really quickly that I'm a big believer in free speech.
Me too.
And free speech to me does not mean that you have to agree with me. In fact, I'm very open-minded and I'm open to hearing other people's opinions, and it's okay to agree to disagree. It's not the end of the world for me if people do not agree with what I agree with or believe in what I believe in. And so I hope that grace can be extended, because this is just our experiences, basically, that we're having and what we're feeling.
Yes, exactly. I couldn't put better myself, darling. Absolutely, I couldn't agree. So we wanted to rewind a little bit before we get into what's happening right now, because one of the key moments in our lifetime, I mean, it's been a lot. I think if you're a millennial, you get so tired of living through unprecedented times. I'm so tired of living through, since 2021, I'm so bored of living through unprecedented times. Can we have precedented times back? Do you remember that? They were great. But one of the big things that in the last 5 years, and we have to talk about it, is the pandemic.
Yeah. 2020 was, because there's been a lot of things that have happened in our lives, I can even think of like one major significant thing was 9/11 for me.
Yeah.
But 2020 just seemed to change everything. Like everything seemed to change. And I know that we are not the only ones that feel that way. I'm sure there's a lot of people watching, or a lot of people that aren't watching, that would agree that 2020 was a big turning point. This was the first time that I think either you or I had dealt with like a mass illness, like type of situation where just being around people was dangerous.
Yeah.
It was very surreal, honestly.
It was. And as I said to you, we talked about this, we talked about the podcast before we came on, and I said, I genuinely believe this 100%, as a collective, globally, we all have PTSD. We all do. How can you not watch the news? And even if you don't watch the news, you're hearing it everywhere. Social media is everywhere. And you're seeing how many people have died today. How many people are infected today. And it was so everywhere and everything. And it was constant. It was 24/7 in our face. How can you not have PTSD from that?
Yeah, and it was really disturbing because just the images on the news and stuff of like watching like fields full of white sheets over bodies, it was just very disturbing. And then of course there's the fear that comes through with your family members that have autoimmune diseases, or they get really sick, or they have health issues already. I remember, like, because my mom was still alive at this point, I remember that she was terrified to even leave the house, because when she would get just a regular cold, she would be on death's door, which is actually not, it's such a twisted coincidence because my mother, how she passed away was she had a cold. My dad didn't get an autopsy, so we don't know what exactly the cause was, although I do suspect that she had COVID because she was in bed and she was very sick. And so she was very worried when, COVID happened, and she was just like wanting to stay inside and not wanting to be around people. And just the fear that people were feeling, like it was horrible.
It was awful, awful. And, we had a family friend that passed away really suddenly, when it was really shocking. Like, it's really hard to put into words. And I know that other people have experienced so much loss during that time. People have lost so many loved ones. But it's very odd when it happens, because it's almost like you're not, even though you're in the epicenter of this horrible time that we all lived through, when it hits you, it's almost like you're not prepared for it. It's very odd. It was kind of like it was happening to us, but away from us at the same time. So when it came knocking on the door, it was very, very strange.
Yeah, I mean, when that all happened, it started over in a different continent from me. To be fair, in a completely different area from you too. So it was kind of like we were just hearing things about it. And it's interesting because both of us love that movie, 28 Days Later, the zombie movie. And it's very interesting because that the main female, I forget what her name is. Do you remember what her name is?
I watched it.
Well, she was basically talking about how, like, you were hearing about it on the news, and then suddenly it was in the streets and it was coming through your windows. And that's very much how it felt. Because it was like, you're hearing about it on the news. And I even had plans to travel to go to a tarot convention in California. It was going to be my first time traveling, my first time going on a plane and all of that. And it all got canceled because of COVID. And it was one of the most surreal moments of my life. But 2020 in general, not just with COVID, but like 2020 in general was very impactful for me personally. I do want to get into something else that impacted me. In May of 2020, George Floyd was what I deem to be murdered in front of the world.
I agree.
Now, I pulled up the medical records, and the medical records do say that his cause of death was asphyxiation. And for those of you that don't know, George Floyd was a Black male that was being arrested because he had tried to use a counterfeit $20 bill. He had run-ins with the police already before. He definitely had a criminal record. He wasn't an angel. He wasn't the most upstanding citizen. Let's just be real, right? He was on fentanyl at the time, so he was an addict. And basically, the cop that was holding him down to the ground put his knee on his neck for 8 minutes. And even though George Floyd was saying he can't breathe, and people that were around that were filming and were horrified by this were saying he can't breathe, get off of him. This wasn't even a nonviolent crime. I don't feel like it was something that should have had that much physical force, to it. And he died. Yeah. This, for me, traumatized me. I was literally traumatized. I had dreams about that man. Yeah. I cried over that. And it really, not only that situation, but it opened my eyes because of how people reacted to that situation. Not only with the anger and the riots and the burning down of police buildings, it was just, I had never seen before. I was just so distraught. But also how people wrote him off as a degenerate addict, that his life didn't matter. And in fact, the world will be better without him. Well, I'm here to tell everybody the world is not actually better without him. My taxes haven't been improved. Racism is still here, and we haven't found a cure for cancer. So the world is not better without him, right? One person doesn't make all the difference like we like to believe. But what really touched me about this is that I have known a lot of addicts. I have addicts in my family. My mother was once an addict. I myself have been what I consider to be an addict at one point. Maybe it wasn't to fentanyl and it was to marijuana and cigarettes, but still I was addicted. And so the thought of people saying that his life didn't really matter, who really cared because of his life choices, was really disturbing to me. I'm somebody that has a lot of empathy and a lot of compassion and a lot of love for the human condition. And I'm also somebody who is a big believer in Jesus, and I love Jesus's way. And that's not what I've been taught. Yeah. Of compassion and forgiveness and love. 2020. And I'm not going to sit here and say that, like, I want to be clear here when I say that I am not on the left or the right. I am not a registered Democrat, nor am I a registered Republican. And I have not voted for Democrat in many, many years. And so for me, having this administration in the office that we do currently doesn't affect me in like an emotional way. Like, I'm not like, oh man, I wake up every day angry that he's the president. It doesn't, like, whatever. But I will say that things became a lot more okay when he came into the office. Insulting people, being more open about things, and maybe even like racial issues, religious issues, us versus them. And that's one of my biggest things that has been awakened since 2020 in my country, me as an individual, a woman of color living in America. Since 2020, it's felt like it is a us versus them, and that's not how I feel. I'm not an us versus them type of person. Let's look at the facts and come up with our own educated response to that. So it was really rough seeing my neighbors and seeing some of my family members and like people that I would essentially say showed their true colors or being so callous. And so like, it was just really traumatizing for me. The whole situation was very traumatizing for me. Yeah, I'm going to stop there because we'll ping pong back and forth here. But that is my initial of 2020, how I was affected by that.
Absolutely. And I remember us talking about it at the time. I know that it was very upsetting and hard on you. And I remember that, the what was happening, not just on a national scale, but on a local scale, it was scary there for a moment. And I'm not saying that suddenly everything's better. I just know that it was very raw back then. It was very real back then. We were talking before we came on, and I said that there's a wonderful quote that came out after the Wall Street crash in 1929, which led to the Great Depression, of course. And it said, when America, what does it say? I want to get this right. When America coughs, the world catches a cold. Which I think is fascinating, because you said something which I think is very telling, is that you don't get to hear an awful lot of global news. Even like, you only know really what's going on in the UK because I tell you, right? So whereas we get stuff that's happening in your country all the time. If you think about our history, and I know our history between our two countries way back when, was problematic. But essentially America, to a lot of it, was your England's cousin. A lot of if that was the whole point of it, was getting away from what's happening here and starting again. And sometimes, it's what is it? It's a shared history, is a shared language or something. I'm going to butcher that quote. But it's like we watch what's happening in America, and it's hard to put into words how crazy and how unbelievable it can be watching America at times, because I don't know, it feels very, very strange in words that probably I can't even find the words for. It feels very, very strange watching what's happening over there. And I don't know whether it's because it's just so big and there's so many different people in one place. Like, how can you have one government when you've got like the East and the West and what's happening in the middle? And there's so many different types of people. People in California are not the same in Florida. People in Florida are not the same in Texas. People in Texas are not the same as in I don't know, Maine. Like, everyone's so different, and yet you've got one government trying to ruin it all. It's like, it's always going to be problematic, I think.
I think that also a big flaw with our political system is that because depending on who is in the White House, that's how the laws go and the legislation and then the new things that are brought in. And so we're like catching whiplash every 4 years because we're trying to keep up with what's changing. This is changing, that's changing. It's like, it's not helpful. And to be fair, we do hear about international news. I am not a watcher of news. And so perhaps I could keep myself more educated if I wanted to. But the news that I do catch is never about anything but over here. And so I find that to be very telling, because I do feel like you probably have it shoved in your face a lot more just on the general news, what's happening over here. Whereas unless something big like your recent protest that you guys had, I saw that, I happened to catch that. But other things, I think when Boris came in, I heard about that on the news, but that's about it. Like, we don't really hear a lot. And I know you're probably chomping at the bit to say some things about how you feel about what's going on.
Well, I was going to just America at the moment, but I just want to say that the UK is not without its problems.
Right.
It's my birthday next month. I'm going to be 44, so I've had me 44 years in this country, and I watched it, and I am watching what's going on, and it can be really, again, baffling and upsetting and stressful. I mean, going back to COVID for a moment, we had a Conservative government here for 15 years, which would be the equivalent of your Republican Party in the States. And of course, the most infamous of that, it was Boris Johnson, which was seen as this kind of clown, buffoon, fun figure. This kind of guy who just like made faux pas and just like bumbled his way around, even the way he spoke and the way he dressed. And it was all done deliberately, by the way. Has been proven by many people who work for him that he would deliberately mess up his head for it on camera. Like, he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
But this is a man who, I mean, just to kind of give you a little bit of COVID kind of facts, if you like. The PPI that they used, they outsourced contracts to personal friends and contacts of their own, most of which was unusable. And they lost, and will never get this money back, £10 billion just in that alone. Like, that's, they've delayed taking COVID seriously. He was out shaking hands and hugging people and making jokes about it. And because of that, 20,000 people died. They put residents from care homes who had COVID back into care homes. And because of that, was it 416,000 people died? Like, it's insane. Of course, one of the big things and one of the reasons he got out in the end was what's known as Partygate. Now, I don't know how much you guys in the States know about Partygate, but during lockdown, where we were told that we could, and I'm on TV all the time going, you must not go out, you must not mix, you must stay at home, blah, 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 blah. We were told this all the time. And at the same time, they were having parties behind closed doors. 17 parties in total they had as a government. And it's just like the anger that people were dying. And these guys were like having cheese and wine parties in Downing Street. I can't. I feel frustrated with my country at times, many, many times, but I remember feeling so angry, like real rage. How fucking dare you do that to the people who you work for, by the way, who voted you in, by the way? How dare you? And I was really, I mean, the police, there was charges made towards certain politicians, but it will never be enough for people. And of course, they say that was a huge part in them being voted out in the end. Thank God.
Yeah, because people eventually show where their loyalties are and where their priorities are.
Absolutely.
And it's really sad because when I think of a government, anybody's government, anywhere in the world, I feel like their number one priority should be their people, taking care of their people, making sure their people have, access to healthcare and clean water and, healthy environments.
Yeah.
It's really, really crazy to me that, and essentially both of our governments really don't care about us.
No.
And that's not something that is just an opinion. That's a fact.
Yeah.
It's a fact with how laws are voted in and how things are done and what people say and how people, it's a fact. And like one of the things that I know that America, we deal with over here that's just crazy is our school shootings.
Yeah, which, I cannot ever understand how it must feel sending your child to school with bulletproof backpack and then they have to do gun drills and what to do if there's a shooter. Like, how do you get your head around that one?
I think that you treat it just like, this is just coming from somebody who lives in that kind of world. I treat it just like I do when I get into my car. Because you can get into a massive accident at any moment, or your tire could fly off at any moment and you could die. You just don't plan for it. You don't think about it. It's one of those things that when it happens, you'll just be shocked and like, oh my God, it's always been a, possibility, but it's not something that you actively think about every single day before you put your kid in school. Like today could be the day. I don't like to think like that anyways, because I do believe in manifest destiny. But yeah, it's just something that it's just a part of the reality, of the world. And it's sad because, a lot of these things get written off as like hoaxes or, they don't make national news the way that, like, let's say the most recent tragedy that we faced with Mr. Kirk getting assassinated. There was a school shooting the next day.
Yeah.
And so it's like, and the public outrage for this man versus our children is crazy to me. It's absolutely insane to me.
I agree.
And it makes me angry when I think about that, because there's, again, one of the problems I feel like that's going on with not just my country, but the world right now is there's a very decisive black and white thinking. And I don't mean color, race wise. I mean, one extreme to the next. It's either this or it's that. You're either over here or you're over there. And there's not a lot of room for a gray area of your own individual thinking and your own individual experience of what's going on. I can't say that my experience of the world since 2020 or since whenever is the same as, like, say, my neighbor who's a police officer, his experience of the world. I can't say that we have the same experiences. We don't. And I find that sometimes when I try to talk about my experience, it's not looked at as valid because it's not the same as the person that I'm talking to, their experience, which is what I wanted to do. One of the things I want to talk about was the importance of empathy.
Yeah.
And how I feel like we are missing a lot of that.
Absolutely, because we're not prepared to have a conversation. We're not prepared to debate anymore. It's like, and I agree with you, it's so divisive. It's like, I'm right, you're wrong.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to, okay, well, why do you think like that? Where's that coming from? And trying to, even if you completely disagree with somebody, like vehemently disagree with somebody, I think, how are we supposed to make anything better for anybody if we don't understand why people believe what they do and where they're coming from?
Yeah, and that's one of the things too, is like, the difference between empathy and sympathy is feeling bad for somebody.
Yes.
Compassion is feeling moved and wanting to make things better for them. But empathy is being able to step in somebody else's shoes and understand what they're going through, which is what is the bridge to compassion and understanding. Because when I can empathize with your plight and feel like it's something that has happened to me or that I can understand on a personal level, then I am more motivated to act and to help, because humans are inherently selfish. And so things are not affecting us until they actually affect us. Yeah. Right. And I looked it up and I wanted to see, because I was just, curious why the world is lacking empathy more now, it feels like, than we used to. Because one of those things that I don't like when people says is, oh man, everything's crap nowadays. The world's just going to hell in a handbasket. The world has always not been great. As a fan of history, just because I'm a fan of history too, there have been atrocious things that have been happening since the dawn of time.
Absolutely.
Okay. But one of the reasons why the world lacks empathy now is because everybody feels so exhausted and burnt out.
Yes.
Everybody is having, what is that called? A compassion exhaustion or whatever?
Compassion fatigue.
Yes, that's exactly it. Everybody has that because everybody's going through something. So it's hard to feel bad for another human being's plight when you're feeling horrible too. Another thing, because I feel you wanting to talk, and I will let you in a second, I promise. Another thing that has caused a lack of empathy is social media.
Yes.
Because we are being desensitized to world events. We are hitting rapid fire now of this bad thing happening, this bad thing happening. Now you have to think about this. You don't have time to process what's happened and actually mourn that event or form an opinion over that event, because now we have to focus on this next thing. Social media also takes the humanization out of your interaction with people, because when we have that term keyboard warrior, it's because, something you would not say to me in my face if you were standing here right in my face talking to me, you feel safe to say over the internet. And so there's that lack of empathy, compassion, sympathy because of this. Now I'll let you have your...
I was going to make your second point, is that our brains literally aren't designed for 24-hour rolling news. We're not. Our brain can't handle it. We are completely overstimulated, overwhelmed, desensitized. Like it's a lot. And like I say, it's constant. In my lifetime, I have never, ever, ever known a time where there hasn't been conflict in the world somewhere.
Yeah.
It's been constant. Ever since I can remember, I've seen videos and pictures of planes and buildings that have been blown up and people starving to death. I mean, there's currently genocide happening, it's been agreed that it's genocide happening. And it's like, it's really, and I don't want to sound like I don't have compassion and empathy for these people. And what I'm saying is I understand to a point how humanity feels, because it is a lot. It's all the time.
Yes. Which is why I do not get on social media, as you know.
Yeah.
YouTube and Patreon is the only social media that I have. Since this last week's events with Mr. Kirk getting assassinated, I have been on social media more than I'd like. And I had to finally stop myself because it's extremely draining and it's just full of dark, negative energy. And I'm just like, I need to find a place of serenity and peace within myself.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Look, we've mentioned his name a few times. We have to talk about it.
Yeah.
I don't really want to talk about it, but we have to talk about it because the ripple effect. I mean, that quote again, when America coughs, the world gets a cold, because what happened last week has a direct influence on what happened here. So we have to talk about it, right? Now, I'll be honest, I was not aware of Charlie Kirk before last week. I had never heard of Charlie Kirk before last week. It's not a world that I inhabit. It's not a world that I'm interested in particularly. And when, obviously, he was assassinated in front of his wife and children, which, holy shit, I did a little bit of research and found out his views and what he does and what he says. And I am not aligned with any of that. I'll be honest with you. I don't align with anything that he said. However, did he deserve then what he got? Absolutely not.
No.
100%. It's not okay. I can have real, I think it's horrific that he was killed. Let's call it what it is. It's horrific that he was killed for his views. Do I agree with his views? No. Does that mean that should lead to really serious consequences? No.
I, like you, I was a little bit aware of him because I live in a red state that's very conservative, and I live in a red county that's very conservative. And so when I would get on YouTube, I would be fed his ads of like his, what he would do, which was basically debate with students and people like that and go back and forth and talk about his views versus their views. And so I would always be fed these things. I think I watched one and I just really did not like the energy that was coming off of him. And so after that, I would always go and block the ad, but I kept getting fed this. So then one day last week I logged into YouTube and it was a breaking news story that he had been shot. And that's why I recognized him. And I was like, very shocked.
Yeah.
I do not align with his views. I just don't, and, people who do, that's fine. Everybody, again, I'm a believer in free speech and everybody having their own opinion. I'm a big advocator for coexisting, which doesn't mean we all look the same, act the same, believe the same. It means that we respect each other's beliefs and differences. That to me is coexisting. So no, I do not align with his beliefs or what he was spreading or what he had to say. And I don't think that he aligned with me as a person either based off of what he was saying. I mean, he said that slavery was a good thing. He said that the civil rights was the worst thing that happened. He actually said that Martin Luther King was an awful person. He said that children should be able to watch live executions. There's a lot of things that he said, and these are facts. These are things that he actually said. I'm not saying he is a bad person. I'm saying this is his beliefs. This is what he put out into the world.
Yeah.
Now, like you, I think it's horrible, absolutely horrible what happened to him. And if I feel bad for anybody, it's his children. That is absolutely atrocious. Just like George Floyd's daughter had to watch her dad die on national television. This man's children got to have front row seat as well. And it's absolutely deplorable. One thing that has been impactful for me on this whole thing is the hate that has been brought out because of this. It's us versus them. Yeah. And this is the beginning of a war now. And it's just like, I just don't, that's not how I feel about things. That's not how I align. I don't want people to fight. I don't want people to hate each other. I want people to love each other and to be, neighbors to each other. And it's really difficult. And I went the day after it happened, I went out to the grocery store. And I live in a town that, again, is very conservative. And we have like 1,500 residents in this town. It's a cross-through town. So there's a big city in front of us, big city behind us. So we get a lot of traffic through. But as far as who actually lives here, it's like 1,500 people. And I am at any given time, when I go anywhere in this town, I'm the only person of color at any given time. When I go to the grocery store, when I go to the bank, when I go to the DMV, my mechanic, post office, anywhere I go. Dunkin' Donuts, McDonald's, it does not matter. Anywhere I go, I am the only person of color. And yes, when you're a person of color, you notice these things, right? Yeah. I want to clarify really fast, like with you, just so everybody is clear, how many times do I actually bring up that I think people are being racist against me?
In the last 11 years we've been friends, I could probably count it on one hand.
Yeah, I'm not somebody that pulls the race card. I'm not somebody that inherently thinks people are being racist if they say this or they look at me like that. But I will say that the day after that happened, when I went to the grocery store, I was getting a lot of weird looks. And it was kind of like, I think that people assume because of what I look like that I believe a certain way and I feel a certain way without even asking me. And so that's how this thing has affected me. That's how this tragedy, and I will call it a tragedy because it is a tragedy, that's how it has affected me. I think that this is, and I'm sorry to cut you off, but I think that this is just another thing in this country about free speech being censored, and it happens on the right, it happens on the left. We are not free to disagree with each other. We're not free to have different views. If you do, you could lose your job, you could be canceled, or you could lose your life.
Exactly. And it makes me, it's very ironic to me that it's literally in your constitution of free speech. Everyone talks about free speech and obviously guns. It's like the right to bear arms. Like it's like so, like it's America. We know this. Like the pillar is like, we can say we have free speech and we really align with that. And now I'm watching what's happening also as a consequence of what happened with Charlie Kirk. And I'm like, I don't know where you guys are going, because it feels like you can't say what you want anymore. There's consequences now, whereas maybe there wasn't before. It is said, and again, I know it is said, and I am, I don't know for definite. I'm not in the cabinet. I'm not in the White House. It's just what I've heard is that people who have made jokes about Charlie Kirk's death or say that they're not sorry that he died, they're being noted. And yeah, there is a thing that there may be consequences for people who have done that as well. It's like, it worries me. It worries me.
Well, I don't think that people should be making jokes about it. And I don't think people should be out there saying that they're not sorry. This is the issue that I have. And it's not just on the right. It's on the left too. And this is why I'm not a believer in any of this political bullshit. I don't subscribe to any of this because it's all about us versus them. And there is a lack of the empathy here. Whether you agree with what he was saying or not, have empathy for his family, have empathy for his life. Because that's, for me, the Christ way. That's Christ's compassion. That's Christ's forgiveness, which is what I strive for in my life, even though I don't really think of myself as hold on a second. Sorry, guys.
This is real world. This stuff happens. We're not polished and perfect. We're just two women having a chat.
I guess somebody got a delivery next door and they used my driveway to do a roundabout. I was like, who is that here that's in my driveway? But yeah, no, I don't think that people should be getting up there making jokes. I don't think that people should be getting up there saying that they're not sorry. You're free to have an opinion, but you're not free from the consequences of that opinion. You're not free of the consequences of free speech. But I think there should be varying degrees. Because you had told me before we even got on this podcast that there was a comment that Jimmy Kimmel had made, and I didn't find the comment to be like he was celebrating this man's death or anything, and now he's lost his job. It's like, where there needs to be a line somewhere to the consequences of free speech, because you should be allowed to have an opinion or speak out against a certain political group, right?
Absolutely, because they have to be held accountable as well. So how can you hold people accountable if you can't say anything negative about them?
And it's not even negativity if it's the truth. That's the thing.
Absolutely, of course. But
like the things that I said earlier about Charlie Kirk and the things that he said, some people will not like that. And some people might dislike this video or click off or unsubscribe or whatever. But I did not make up anything. Everything that I said came out of his mouth. I agree. It's not about positive versus negative. It's about that's the truth. Yeah. That's what he said.
Absolutely.
You either agree with that or you don't agree with that. And for me, as a person who does not align with those views, it's very enlightening to watch other people who do, because it's like you're saying things without actually saying things. You're teaching me by what you believe in and what you support, who you are as a human being.
I don't know if you're aware, you might not be, because it's not a channel that I subscribe to at all. But of course, social media, you just hear stuff. And I saw the clip. Fox News, which I know is very Republican, very conservative, but they said on air, one of the news people said that homeless people should all be given lethal injection.
Yeah, I saw that. I saw that, and it's not an edited clip. It's not AI. They very much, and nobody was shocked or batted an eyelash or anything.
No, because he wasn't on his own. There was like two other people on the couch with him as he said that, and they didn't go, "Oh my gosh, you can't say that," or like there was no look. They just kind of was like, yeah.
And it's like, you think that people should die because they're homeless. I mean, that's what you're saying, right? And these are the things that disturb me, is because, and again, it comes from all sides. It doesn't just come from one side.
Yep.
You know how I feel about this. I am not a lefty. I am not a righty. You know I do not subscribe to either side. I feel like it's desensitizing. Is that the correct word? Desensitizing of these radical beliefs. So that way, when we start actually doing it, because when I was growing up in school, I was a big, I was just so interested in World War II. I don't know why. I just was. I read everything I could. I was so interested in it. I mean, and I noticed that that's kind of what happened, was these radical views being fed little by little to the masses. So that way, when we start doing it, nobody's really surprised or even feeling anything emotionally.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm not saying that that's what's happening or that that's where we're going or any of that. I'm not saying that it's not either. I'm just saying that people need to touch grass, get out there in their community and be around their neighbors. They need to maybe go to a homeless shelter and talk to homeless people and see why they're in the situation that they're in.
Yep.
They need to maybe go to a rehab center and talk to addicts and see why they're in the situation that they're in.
Yeah.
And see the human again and feel the human again.
Yeah.
Because when you don't look at somebody as a human, it makes it okay to do horrible things to them.
Yes, which again we have seen in World War II. If you other people, if you take away their humanity, then it becomes okay to treat them in a certain way.
Yeah, and that's rounding back to what we talked about with George Floyd. That's what happened with him, in my opinion. Do I agree with his lifestyle? No. Do I think he was like man of the year? Absolutely not. But did he agree to be treated that way over a counterfeit $20 bill? No, he didn't.
Absolutely not.
And,
I agree.
And the fact that people afterwards were just saying, like, well, he was just a degenerate anyway. It's like, we've lost our humanity at some point along the way. And I do want to talk about what's going on, because I feel like we've focused a lot over here.
Okay.
and I want to talk about this protest that happened, because I know that affected you.
Yeah. Now, again, this is just my opinion. And I know people, again, it's very divisive in my country at the moment. Very, very black and white thinking. So this is the facts, okay? In London on the 13th of September, estimated between 110 and 150,000 protesters descended. They were entirely white people, and they were predominantly male. Okay, I'm not saying there wasn't women there, but they were mostly white men. And it was organized by a man called Tommy Robinson, who, that's not his real name. His real name is Stephen Yaxley Lennon, but he felt that was not conducive to his beliefs, so he changed his name to make himself more palatable to the people he talks to, because he is a former member of the racist British National Party, who were known for their racist beliefs in this country. Again, this is all fact, okay? Tommy Robinson has also had a string of convictions to his name. He's been done for assault, for using a fake passport, for mortgage fraud, and for contempt of court. So this is a man who, he led this. It really is the rise of the far right, as far as I can see, in my country, which concerns me deeply. Very concerning. During the protest, a figure who I know the US are very familiar with, Elon Musk, came on screen on a prompter and said, and I quote, "Whether you choose violence or not, violence is coming to you. You either fight back or you die."
Sorry, go ahead.
So incisive that it reminds me a little of the January 6th storming of the Capitol. And I'm concerned that, again, if you legitimize people's behavior, they feel justified to continue that behavior, but also to lean more into that behavior.
I will just interject really quickly, and then I'm gonna let you continue, because like I said, I feel like I've done a lot of talking in this podcast. I don't really, again, have a true opinion of Elon Musk, to be honest. I was kind of like, what is he even doing, like, in our financial systems and our IRS? Like, this doesn't make any sense to me. But I will say that I could take what he said as a warning for possibly me too. Like, not just what he's talking about, trying to invoke fear for what his agenda is, but anybody listening to that. Because yes, what was the quote again?
The quote is, whether you choose violence or not, violence is coming to you. You either fight back or you die.
Brilliant quote. I know that you're not a fan of him. I understand, but that is a brilliant quote in my personal opinion, because and that can be, again, not just for the people that he's like trying to push his agenda, whatever his agenda is on, but for you and I too, whether we choose violence or not. it could possibly be coming to us. I mean, it's almost like it's a foreboding type of energy. Like he knows things we don't know.
Exactly.
I don't know.
It did feel like that. Like he was kind of, it was foreshadowing. Like he's still got his fingers in many different places that he shouldn't be, and it's part of something. And so it concerned me. And of course, in that environment where you've got hundreds of thousands of people who are all there for a reason, and people say, what's the purpose of it, right? Why did they march? Why did they rally? It was called basically Take Our Country Back. Mm-hmm. That they don't like the way this country is going in terms of government policy and in terms of economics, which I get. Of course, a lot of it is to do with immigration. We in this country, and I know the US has had, immigration is always a huge thing for most countries, right? Especially in the West, people fleeing from obviously developing countries or war-torn countries, they will head our way. And we've had a real problem with what they've deemed small boats, because obviously the UK is an island. It is surrounded by water, right? So to get here, you either get here by plane, by train, go on the Eurostar, or you get a boat. And there's been lots of illegal crossings. There's been people smugglers have been making thousands, hundreds of thousands, not millions of pounds off these poor people, shoving them on these tiny little boats. And there's like, if you ever see pictures or videos of them, there's like, it's an overcrowded boat. And they're not suitable for the crossing they're about to make. The English Channel is a very rough patch of water, and many of them die on that crossing. They'll fall in, the boat will capsize, or it's horrific. And of course, there's lots of people in this country who do not agree with it for many different reasons. And it's leading to where we are now. And so they had the rally, the march on that Saturday. There's another thing that's happening, which is known as Operation Raise the Colours over here at the moment, which began in Birmingham. And it's showing the increase of the English flag. They say it's for patriotism, but a lot of critics are saying it's very intimidating, and it's linked to immigration and far-right ideology. I am proud to be British. My country has its problems, like all countries have their problems. I am proud of my country. I recognise it was called Great Britain. It doesn't feel so great right recently, but I'm proud to be British. But I see what's happening with the flags situation in this country as potentially problematic, because I think that not everybody is doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost very reminiscent of what we've been dealing with over here with like Build the Wall.
Yeah,
and it's really interesting, and it's almost like you guys are not far behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, again, this goes with that whole on the whole of just human beings feeling fed up and tired, and that is something that actually happened with World War II, is that immigrants or Jewish people, like they were taking all the resources, and that's why Germans were poor, and that's why they were suffering, and so we put the blame on them, and it's the same thing, and it's kind of scary. Like, I really wish that you and I could just move to some like secluded island somewhere where we're just like away from all of this crap. You know what I mean? Because it's like, I don't want anything bad to happen to you, and I worry about things over there, and just like I'm sure you worry about me over here. It's just really terrible.
It's not great. It's not great. The other thing that I noted down, which I'm sure you probably heard of this British guy, because he seems to be around a lot in your country at the moment around Trump, is Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage is a leader of the Reform Party. He tried to actually be Prime Minister many, many times and never got voted for. And so he moved to the European Parliament. They didn't really want him either. He's a very divisive figure, and he does it deliberately. He knows what he's doing. And so but he created the Reform Party. And at the last election in 2024, they got 4.1 million votes, the Reform Party.
Wow.
Which, again, is concerning. He came over to the US because he was their main speaker at a rally for Trump. But he didn't inform his party that he was going to do that, and he ended up getting fined for it. So,
yeah.
But it's just, it concerns me what's happening in this country right now, and there is racism here, and it may not seemingly be as overt as what you've had in the States, but that doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We have, rather than not that we don't have a Black community, but there's a lot of obviously Middle Eastern. We have a lot of Muslims. We have a lot of Asian community, and there's racism here. Yeah. I am not a racist person. I have a racist bone in my body. And so to see people's beliefs and people's then actions from those beliefs, it does concern me. I'm not going to sugarcoat it and pretend that it doesn't. And it worries me where we're going.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really hard for anybody who is very empathic and very sensitive to be in this world, because I, like you, the first thing that I see is not color and gender and religious, preferences or sexual preferences or culture. I see a human.
Yeah.
And I see behind that, I see the suffering and the trauma that they've probably went through that has caused them to be the way that they are.
Yeah.
And it's really terrifying in a world where it's like that, again, that empathy. And then this is something that I can't stress this enough. We need more empathy. We need to be able to step into another person's shoes and see they are human too.
Yeah.
and that they have been through their own suffering. They've been through their own misfortunes, and they have their own story. They have their own path. And it's just really difficult. I want to read a quote.
Yeah.
And this quote, I actually came across this the other day on YouTube, and it touched me in such a profound way. So it says, if you can love the parts within you that have been I already fucked it up, y'all. I swear to God, what's wrong with me? When I try to be like serious.
Take a breath.
Okay.
Center.
Okay. Let me start over, guys.
Okay.
We all deserve a second chance.
Yeah. The last 10 seconds didn't happen. Yeah, we're centered, we're breathing, we're calm. When you're ready.
I promise this is not the first time I'm reading. Okay. If you can love the parts within you that have been enemies, then you can love the external enemies that you have, because inner and outer are parallel. And if you can see the inner parts in you as having their own protective pain that drives their extremes, then you can see that in those that you consider to be enemies in your outer world. And that's by Richard Schwartz.
Wow.
And basically, so if you can see the bad parts in yourself and give yourself grace, then you can see the bad parts in other people and extend grace to them, because we're all going through it. And that's basically how I feel about everything.
I love that. I love that. I mean, essentially, I was born and brought up to believe, one of my real core beliefs is that you treat people how you expect to be treated yourself.
Yes.
And you, again, try and see people's humanity, but also, I don't really care what you believe in. I don't really care who you are, what you've done, where you are. I don't really care. What I care about is, are you a nice person?
Yeah.
As long as you're not hurting me or anybody else, do you? I don't care. What I care about is, are you a good person? That's it. Full stop.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it feels like that's just not where the world's at. The world is very dog eat dog. You know, and this is when I've said this quite a few times on this podcast, that reading comment sections on social media will make you hate people. I've said that. And I feel like that came off as very extreme. But when you see things like, you're like, oh, for instance, it's been voted in or it's been passed or whatever that we can now open carry here in Florida, whereas before you weren't able to. And I was on one of my community boards. So this is my community. It's my county. And a woman had said, actually, I think it's goes county by county and not for the whole state. And somebody responded and they said, what are you, an idiot? It's not county by county. It's the whole state. It's like, why do we talk to each other like that? Why did you need to call her an idiot? Because she wasn't informed? Correct her and move on.
Yeah.
Educate her so then she'll know. But calling her an idiot, being aggressive right off the bat, is not going to help her open up to your point of view.
No.
And that's what I mean when I talk about the comment sections, because it's like the way that people talk to people is like, it's disgusting.
I agree. I totally agree with everything that you said. And like, we don't necessarily have an answer for anything that we've spoken about. You know, this is not going to type in a nice little pink bow for you. What we will say is, look, you are going to meet people who have difference of opinion than you. When you go out into the world or you're online, you're going to meet people who don't think like you do. And maybe it's not always easy. I know there are going to be times when it's a lot harder than other times, but maybe if you can remember there's a person in there, even if they're spouting hate and bile and violence, they're still a person. And maybe if we can try and see each other's humanity, maybe we can try and build bridges. I'm not saying it's a perfect solution. I'm not saying it's an easy solution, but maybe right now it's the only solution that we've got.
I think that if there's a certain group or a certain people, whatever, homeless people, drug addicts, Muslims, white people, Christians, whatever, if there's a certain group that you're not exactly empathizing with, I think you should spend time with them.
Mm.
I think that's a good way. What was that show that you had told me about where people were going around? They were basically going and seeing about refugees. Was that what it was? Like they were having the refugee lifestyle or something?
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called off my head. I wish I'd kind of written it down before I came on. And basically, it was a UK show that was on a channel called Channel 4. And so it took a group of people who were very anti-immigration, apart from two of them, because you have to have balance. And they went on the paths that immigrants were taking to get here. So they split them up and they went to certain places in the world which are really suffering with poverty and war and conflict. And they literally went on the same journey that those people would go on. So they were going through the mountains, they were doing the crossing on the small boat, and they were meeting people who were trying to get into our country along the way, and listening to their stories and their struggles and their challenges. And it was really impactful. I'm not saying that suddenly they were like, loving everybody, but it shifted so many things inside their heads to realize that maybe the mindset they've been holding on to was not the only mindset. And maybe they could start to think about this differently.
Yeah. And I think that like, it's one of those things where, we need more television like that. Like we need more of that in our world, because it's seeing the human behind the struggle. It's seeing the human behind the situation. So my advice for anybody is, if you have something in your heart where you just don't like this certain group or this certain people or whatever, go spend time with them and open your mind up and hear about their life experiences. It's not saying that, okay, everybody should be able to go into any country they want and there should be no laws, no immigration laws. I don't believe that, but it's, again, seeing the human plight and understanding why they want to come into your country and why they're leaving everything that they've ever known behind.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, I will leave you with this. You know that I'm a massive women's empowerment person and a huge feminist, and it's a whole different topic. But I read this before I came on, and so the UN, there is what's known as, I'm going to get this right, then it's called the Agenda for Sustainable Development. The UN was set up after World War II, and so all the countries in the UN have agreed by 2030 that they're going to have these very key points that they're trying to move forward with. And so, literally this week, they've done the 2025 gender snapshot to see, like, we've got 5 years. Where are we at? And one of the key things, and I'll read you this because I wrote it down. Over 1 in 8 women aged 15 to 49 is subjected to physical and or sexual violence by their current or former partner in the last 12 months. The world spends $2.7 trillion on weapons every year, yet comes up with up to a 420 billion shortfall for gender equality. Now, if that doesn't tell you everything that you need to know about right now, I don't know what does.
I think that some of that also should get put into our healthcare, just in general.
Absolutely.
I mean, healthcare is horrible in your country and in my country and probably everywhere else too. So
$2.7 trillion globally on weapons every year.
Because that's what we need to do is fight each other and kill each other. And then Mother Nature can take back over and all the little bunnies and butterflies will finally be able to prosper. I can get down behind that. I'm not supposed to be on this planet anyways, guys. I had said it on a YouTube video the other day that I feel literally like, I feel like I'm on Gilligan's Island. I was supposed to only have a 3-hour tour. Here we are 39 years later. What the fuck is happening? Why am I still here? I'm doing the flashlight thing in the sky. Why is there no spaceship? It's just like, what did I do to deserve this? I just want to get off of this place.
Oh, but on that bombshell, I think we should probably wrap things up. But look, whatever this podcast was, I'm happy that we talked about things, and I'm happy that we put things out into YouTube land and social media land. And like we said at the top, if you agree, disagree with us, just remember that we are people too, and we're allowed to have our opinions. And just if you disagree with us, that's fine, because you're also allowed your opinion. So let's just try and be kind to each other and give each other grace. But I do hope that you've enjoyed this episode, and I hope be interesting as always to hear your comments and to hear your thoughts. We really appreciate you being part of this journey with us, basically.
Yeah. And I mean, in any comments, of course, we ask for respect. You can disagree with everything that we've said and tell us that we're absolutely wrong. Just don't call us names and just don't, because the only power we have is to block you, and we will exercise that power. So basically that's
Amen. Anyways, look, guys, you've taken enough of your time. Thank you for watching this. If you've stayed till the end, God bless you. You're an absolute star. We love you so much. And as always, we will catch you on